Ready on? Oh, good. So we have tonight's speakers. This is really kind of a fun discussion. A whole group, right? Come on up here. Come on up here. Sit down. So the first thing is they're going to talk tonight. Sit. Hey, have dinner. They're going to talk tonight about light pollution. They will tell you they are not astrophysicists. They are not, they are just people who are very interested in the topic, and they actually do some work, right? They actually have something. They just recently got something signed. They can talk about all the stuff here. Now, the other interesting thing is in our bylaws, it says that we are interested in light pollution and what can we do to help fix that. Their interest goes beyond that, goes beyond astronomy. So that's kind of the interesting part of the stuff here. It's more than just astronomy. It's other stuff. It's animals and the like. So first is Christine Putnam. Christine, right? And Christine, she's a retired middle school science teacher. I was a high school science teacher. Serves on the Albemarle County Natural Heritage Committee and other advisory boards focused on stewardship of the environment, right? And next is Carol Carter. There's Carol. She attended UVA School of Nursing and the Darden School of Business. So another UVA, double UVA-er. She served on the boards of the Virginia Conservation Network and the Botanical Garden of the Piedmont, and on the local Virginia Native Plant Society, and on the Piedmont Environmental Council. So very heavy into environmentals. Peggy Cornett she's worked at Monticello. My wife always yells at me. Is that right?
No.
I always get it wrong. Yeah. So anyway, she's worked at Monticello since 1983 as the Associate Director of Gardens and Grounds and the Curator of Plants. She's earned degrees in English and Botany at UNC Chapel Hill and has a master's degree from the University of Delaware. And finally, Pierce Harding is an urban environmental planning master's student at UVA right now, and has a Bachelor of Arts degree in environmental studies from Rollins College in Florida. Rollins. You sure? Because I wrote it. No. Rollins College. My writing is terrible. He helped found Florida's first dark sky chapter and assisted the city of Groveland. I got that one right. In becoming the first dark sky community on the East Coast. Right. So for that, thank you so much for coming, and I'll turn it up to who's ever first.
There's slides.
Yeah, there are.
If you'd like me, I can run them for you. If you want to run them yourself. Let me make sure I've got them.
Yeah, I do. You do. Yeah.
Okay.
Who's next? Who's next?
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're next.
Is this the keyboard?
Yeah, that's great. All right.
Can people online see this? The slideshow? Thumbs up. The slideshow should up, right?
All right. Well, great. Thank you for having us. And we're excited to be able to talk to a like-minded crowd here. And like Kevin said, we're not experts, but we're very passionate about this. So you can go to the next slide. And so we're going to talk to you about the group that we formed, this Dark Skies Piedmont group, a little bit of background. We're going to talk about the impact of artificial light at night and the things that we can do about it, and some of the things that are happening locally in the Charlottesville-Albemarle area. And maybe at the very end, we can discuss how we could all work together to try to solve some of these problems. All right, the next slide. So our group, we got together, these three ladies here, we're friends, but one of the things that we are noticing is the night is getting lighter, right? There's with the advent of LEDs, and you see it everywhere. And it's like, well, what can we do about it? So we decided to form this group. And so we trying to raise awareness, trying to advocate for stronger ordinances on the local level. And we meet virtually on the second Tuesday of every month from 5:30 to 6:30. So we invite you to come and join us. And our next meeting is April 8th. So we can go to the next slide. So perhaps you have already seen these statistics, right? That only 2 out of 10 people on Earth can see the Milky Way. And because most people live under polluted skies, so it's really difficult. And so you can go to the next slide. And the next one, we are going to just kind of review the different types. What do we mean when we talk about light pollution? And we can put it in different categories. And then Carol's going to lead us through that.
Yeah, and I'm going to look at my notes because I want to keep it pithy, and I don't want to go off on tangents. But so light pollution, like everything else, has its own vocabulary. Sky glow is this uplighting that obscures the stars and bounces down. Next, glare. I think everybody, it's like pornography. You know it when you see it. It's car headlights, it's those pack lights, and glare is especially bad for people over 40, which includes most of the folks in this room, but not all, because as we age, our eyes lose their elasticity, and it takes 30 minutes for eyes to get used to nighttime vision. And anyway, a headlight will make you lose that. Next is light trespass. And light doesn't recognize property boundaries. Light trespass is annoying if your neighbor has their lights on. It also has spawned this whole industry. You go to Lowe's, you go and you're blinded if you go down the lighting aisle, and then there's the next aisle, a few aisles over, that has all the blackout shades, and then you can get your, night masked and all of those things because people are troubled by light trespass. So be a good neighbor. And also don't be afraid to at least talk to your neighbors if they're problematic. Okay, and next, yeah, light pollution has consequences. It has consequences for people, birds, mammals, insects, other invertebrates, and plants. And I am an old neuro nurse, and the health effects of light, especially, some of the bright blue LED lights and screens, is really, it has intriguing negative consequences, let's put it that way. I'm also an energy wonk, so I like low energy light bulbs. Sleep is the biggest. Oh, right. Yeah. Sleep is the biggest, it is associated with memory loss. And I can't even read all my notes. Even minute amounts of light from your cell phone charger can be sleep disruptors. I believe in science. I hope science continues in the current realm we're in. But there was a great study last year about the tiniest little, night lights and things where they put masks on people, and they had some masks with holes on in them. And they determined that in the sleep studies, people who had the complete dark had way better sleep. Melatonin, a lot of people take it to help them fall asleep. It's a natural occurring hormone that, as you can see, regulates your sleep cycle. Normally, as dusk occurs, your melatonin goes up and you get a little bit sleepier. I didn't know if people, were taking melatonin to help them sleep until one of my daughter's old boyfriends, who was a real, he was taking it. It's like, why is Chris taking that drug? And she says, well, he's a gamer, so he's on screens all the time doing his gaming, and then he can't sleep at night because he's been bombarded with all the screen time. So that was kind of a wake-up call for me. It's really, you've probably all heard, it's recommended to decrease your screen time for 2 hours before bedtime. That's because that's like sort of the normal dusk. You're supposed to be letting your hormones take over. It's what your body does naturally. this is a great study. This 2016 report. The AMA also sent a letter to the car makers writ large, asking them to decrease the LED lighting in headlights, because it's not just older people. A lot of older people don't even want to drive at night, but the glare from headlights is a real safety factor. It's dangerous. Okay. Oh yeah, that's fine. I think we switched some of these, and I'm kind of yeah, jumbled up myself. But you know, our circadian rhythm is tied to the hormone melatonin as well as endocrine, and so lack of sleep is associated with cancers, especially breast cancer. It's also associated with obesity, depression, and sleeping disorders. And sleeping disorders are getting a lot of press these days. I was going to say, this is a great report. You can read all the details about the suprachiasmatic nucleus and the neurobiology if you are interested. Light color is important, and here's the next slide. And 2700 is best if you can find it, or less. And the correlated color temperature is pretty much of a blunt instrument. So
Yeah. And so one of the problems, the reason why we have this little the graph of the wavelengths, that you can see, even if you go to the store and you get the warmest color temperature LED lights, even if you buy a bug light, you know, those wonderful bug lights that are really yellow, it can still contain a lot of blue light in it. And that's your sleep disruptor. And that's the one that's going to be disrupted. You know, Peggy will talk a little bit more about to other animals in the natural world. So that's just something to keep in mind, that when we're talking about this, it gets to be a little bit more complicated. All right,
Is it my turn? Yeah. Oh. Keep going. All right, turtles. Got to talk about turtles. Of course, the hatchlings, we probably are aware of this, but they are affected by light pollution. And before the advent of artificial illumination, hatchlings always oriented toward the ocean. Why? Because the moon is shining on the ocean is bright from that reflection, and they just naturally go to it after they've hatched. But reflecting the brightness of the moon's stars is now being affected by hatchlings getting confused and disoriented as they clamber towards city lights. So again, this is one of the big problems for sea turtles. Next. Birds. I'm a big birder as well as a plant person. And birds are like moths. They're attracted to light. Birds also migrate using celestial navigation. And when birds are confronted by large, brightly lit skylines or urban areas, they become disoriented. And not only are they attracted to the light pollution of the cities, but the sky glow obscures their view of the night sky, which they use to find their direction. Birds will fly toward the light as if they don't immediately collide with the buildings. They are reluctant to leave the lit area. Do we need to move a slide? Let's go to the next one. No, this is right. Okay, go back. It was just one slide. They may fly around in circles until they drop to the ground with exhaustion. On the ground in an urban environment, they are susceptible to starvation, dehydration, and predation. Think cats, of course. And there is data that estimates that up to 100 million to 1 billion birds die from collisions with buildings in North America each year. These dead birds, as you see here, were collected by citizen scientists after colliding in a building at one night during bird migration periods. This was in Chicago, wasn't it? Yeah. So after this happened, I think there's a human outcry, and the building started turning their lights off during the migration period. They don't turn off all the time, of course, but all these high buildings around here, they're leaving their lights on for unnecessarily. There's no reason to leave all these lights on. And that's been the big thing that has bothered me. Trees are, of course, affected by light pollution. Those exposed to artificial light at night bud earlier, lose their leaves later, and have shorter lifespans. And you can see how the light on these trees has affected their natural cycle. So you can see the lighted area below has caused the leaves to stay on the trees, whereas the area that's away from the light has naturally dropped its leaves. Next. Fireflies. Field studies have shown fireflies are lured to artificial or LED lights at night, and then they are less likely to engage in courtship dialogues, which is what they're doing while they're flashing. Even car headlights and light escaping from your windows can interfere with firefly communication. Firefly populations cannot easily move from one area to another to escape artificial light, which is the second greatest threat after habitat loss. And even in my own backyard, I live in Belmont in town. You know, there's lots of trespassing light in my neighborhood, but in my backyard, it's been really dark. And last summer was just magical to watch the fireflies, because they come up out of the ground and they go all the way to the tops of the trees. It's just amazing. And so this has been a big concern of mine, as neighbors tend to put in their security lights that come on when a cat walks by their backyard, and then they stay on for 5 minutes. And this is a big problem. Okay, one more thing. Pollinators. Here we go. A team of scientists in Switzerland investigated how the interaction between plants and pollinators were affected by artificial light at night by comparing plots of illuminated plants with LEDs and those left in the dark. Focusing on one plant species, the cabbage thistle, the ecologists counted 62% fewer insect visits to the lit meadows. They also noted 29% fewer pollinators than in the control plots. So light is affecting the pollinators, especially the pollinators at nighttime. So, and I think next is energy waste.
Now I'm going to talk about energy waste.
Okay.
All right. So not only, right, is we have all this light is doing damage to the environment, doing damage to our health, but also it's wasteful. And the sad thing is that we spend, billions of dollars, we're putting out extra carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And I read this thing is just astounding that of all the light, this is interior light and exterior light, that only 1% of it is actually ever useful, that actually meets our eyes and that we use it. So you think about all the lights that are left on in buildings, and even you drive around Charlottesville during the day, the lights are on in a lot of places. So, how can we there are so many reasons to work on turning the lights down, having less illumination, because we can save money, we can work on our carbon footprint, and for those reasons. Next one. And also, as all of you know, right, when we obscure our view of the night sky, then we're not able to connect to the universe, to actually understand our place in the universe. And how important is that? And I know you guys understand that, right? And especially given all the things that are happening, we need that perspective. And so it's so important to not obscure that view. All right, the next one. And so perhaps you've seen these like astounding pictures, right? And here we are in 2025, and you can see the difference in how fast the pace of change is happening. And so it is frightening, and we really need to act to do something about it. And this is incredible, right? Light pollution is increasing at a rate of almost 10% per year. Pardon me?
Can you explain those image flows that I see, look like increasing light, is it like overheat?
Yes, this is going from the 1950s, 1970s, 1997, this is 2025. So that's the amount of light pollution. And you can see where we are in Virginia, how that is just the astounding difference that has happened.
We noticed that he had his laser on there, right where he's pointing to now, and that little blue spot, dark spot, is where we are south of us.
Yeah,
We're lucky.
we are lucky, and we need to protect it, right?
Nelson County, Center, and
Yeah.
Southern Albemarle, we're
Yeah.
right in there.
Yeah,
So look at that.
yeah. All right. And then,
Yeah, or there's a question from the lady, but I think
Yeah.
you can address it at the end. Probably.
Yeah. Oh, I see. You were the second comment.
Okay, and then we'll go to the next one. All right, and these were just some images I got from the light pollution map, and this shows Charlottesville. This was 2013 and 2023, and you could just see how it's the light pollution has sort of migrated into the rural areas, right? So what used to be, both Carol and I live over in southern Albemarle, right around here. And you can definitely see that dome of light from Charlottesville, and just when you can see more and more people, they have floodlights, they have porch lights, and they're the LEDs, and so they're incredibly bright, and they're on all night. So, all right, the next one. And so I'm going to pass this on to.
I got a mic
Oh,
right here,
okay, Pierce.
everybody. So as Kevin said, I'm studying urban and environmental planning. And I started my work in light pollution because I'm just very interested in any issue that crosses between the environment and the built environment, and humans and animals. And so I started an undergrad in Florida, as Kevin mentioned, working with a really small city right outside of Orlando, on getting dark sky community certified. And so this community didn't really have too much going on for them, not much tourism or anything, just being like a commuter city right outside of Orlando. But through this process and getting people really excited about astronomy and getting people visiting their city, once they put these measures in place that I'll talk about, they got a huge boost in ecotourism and money coming in. And essentially what this certification is it's administered by the International Dark Sky Association, which is the largest advocacy group in the world. And it recognizes cities or towns that actively reduce light pollution and promote the outdoor lighting practices that we've been talking about thus far. So in order to achieve a certification like this, a community has to implement certain ordinances that help control lighting on private property, as well as retrofitting public lighting and doing educational initiatives. So once I came to UVA, I wanted to try to continue this passion and continue this work. And I thought Charlottesville would be a good place to try to build towards this type of certification. You go to the
It's
next.
in Orlando near a place called Disney World.
Yeah. So lots of light pollution there. And so I've been working on this independent study for the past 2 semesters. And initially my main goals and purposes was really just to start an open line of dialogue with city officials, just to figure out what is their understanding of light pollution, how aware are they of these issues, and what are they doing? And I'll get a little bit more into that in a second. Also, just proposing interventions and recommendations on how we can pursue a certification like this, especially since we have so many great astronomers here and a good community for it. But one of my main focuses has been data collection, so trying to assess Charlottesville's current light pollution status, so we can just understand where we're at and where we need to go. And so some of the things I've been doing for that is gathering visual data, so like street level photographs with professional photographers. We're still gathering some of those photos of like public street lights, trying to work with a local drone pilot to get drone footage to see how much light is really like trespassing. As well as my main focus is measuring light pollution levels around the city using an SQM-L meter, which on the next slide. So what this looks like, it's a handheld meter. My professor has it right now, otherwise I would have brought it. But let's see. So it measures sky brightness by pointing a light sensor towards the sky. You just hold it up in the air, press that start button, and it gives you a reading on the scale from 16 to 21 measured in magnitudes per square arc second, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with in astronomy. So the higher the number, the darker the sky. It's been used in some scientific studies, but of course there's some limitations. If you have a really cloudy night, you're going to have some light that's getting refracted around. So try to, gather the data on clear nights. So I've been gathering data on around the new moon phases, just to have the minimal amount of moon light pollution. And so far my readings for Charlottesville, if you go back to the other side really quick, it's kind of the map of where I'm collecting data from, spreading it out a bit. Trying to get some busy areas like Emmett Street right across from the Barracks Shopping Center, quieter neighborhoods like Greenbrier, downtown, trying to get a good diverse range of data collection back. And so generally I'm finding that we're around the 18 and 19 mark, which is actually a little bit better than some other communities that you would go to in Virginia. But we still have a lot of work to do, obviously. And I have actually been collecting readings right outside the observatory here, and the average for that has been around 19.3, 19.5. So it's one of the darker spots in Charlottesville. And yeah, you can go to the, and so it does translate to the Bortle scale. And so we're some, we're, as you would expect, we're around the 6 or the 7 area right now. But the Bortle scale, as I'm sure you guys might be familiar with, is yeah, don't have to beat a dead horse. Keep going. And so I take these readings and upload them on a platform called Globe at Night, where I upload the exact numbers. And so you can zoom in really to anywhere in the world where people are uploading this data and just compare and see how other cities are doing and how things are changing over time. So I'm really trying to do this just so that we have current documentation now to teach people how to do it and use it as an educational tool. Yep. No. So coming back to what's happening right now in Charlottesville. And so this is something I started learning about very early into my independent study and quickly started to focus more on this. So Charlottesville is currently, they just started in August, a project trying to retrofit all of the public lighting, street lighting in the city from, what is it, high pressure sodium bulbs to LED bulbs. And so this is part of, they just came out with a climate action plan. So they're trying to implement certain strategies to reduce our footprint. And so in doing this, the main benefits from switching to LED, from high pressure sodium to LED is that LEDs have longer lifespans. They don't need as much maintenance. High pressure sodium has harmful substances in it like mercury and lead. And you can also use adaptive controls in LEDs to try to control brightnesses and blue light and those types of things that we've talked about. But as we also mentioned, some of the drawbacks and some things they are worried about moving forward as they move into neighborhoods is that it can be very bright at first because the lumen output is higher, and blue light also is more of an issue. So that, yeah, something to keep in mind. But they're really focusing on the energy savings here. So usually LEDs save 40 to 60% more energy than high pressure sodium. And so, but one major challenge that we're running into is that Dominion Energy owns all of our public streetlights. So our city has to go through them to decide, okay, what fixtures can we change to? Do we have options that can like shield light from going up, causing glare, all of these things? And what we found is that Dominion's inventory is very limited. They don't have very many options for this. And yeah, they lack a lot of dark sky fixtures, and they don't offer any adaptive control, so no ways to really control these lights remotely, or if there's an area that doesn't need it at certain times, those types of things. And so to combat this, we've helped create a statewide coalition group called the Virginia Responsible Lighting Coalition. So we're collaborating with other localities like Norfolk and groups in Nova as well, whose cities are also going through these retrofit projects. So this is happening all across Virginia, all around the same time, and they all have to deal with Dominion. And a lot of localities, just as I said earlier, just aren't aware of the issue. So the work that we're trying to do is to help educate localities, but also we're directly communicating with Dominion to try to pressure them a bit and talk through why they should offer better lighting fixtures, because they're not very educated as well, because they don't have as much of an incentive to care. But if we can get the localities and governments to care, those are their customers. So that's where we're trying to apply the pressure a little bit, because they trust Dominion's judgment. They think they're the expert, but they're not in this case. Yeah.
So I mean, there's obviously a big conflict of interest there because they want to sell as much lighting and energy as they can. So what kind of incentives can the government, or are you trying to get the government to?
Yeah. So for them, having more efficient fixtures, like with adaptive controls and ways to control and focus lighting, will boost energy efficiency even higher. And Dominion is actually the one that pays the utility bill. So Charlottesville, we just pay like a flat rental fee for all of our public streetlights, and then Dominion is the one actually paying the monthly utility fees. So it's in their best interest as well to try to reduce these.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Considering light pollution,
is worse for light pollution? The LEDs or the high pressure solar?
So yeah, it's a convoluted question. I would say the way we've done it in the past with high pressure sodium is worse because the fixtures haven't included like the shields and all these other controls.
Okay,
But
that's
yeah,
something you
yeah.
Forget the shield.
Mhm.
Let's say they both have shield. Which is worse, keeping it at high pressure sodium? Now, we're not talking about energy.
Yeah.
We're talking about dark skies. So overall, would you
Well-
rather live in a community that has appropriate amount of high pressure sodium, or would you prefer LEDs? And also with that question, you say Charlottesville is going to replace their high pressure sodiums with the LEDs. Do you have an idea if they're going to use the 3,000 or the 5,000?
Yeah, so that was the next thing I'm going to talk about. The lowest color range that we have been able to get is what, 2,700?
Well,
Yeah.
from Dominion, it's,
From Dominion, yeah.
isn't it
3,000.
3,000?
Yeah, 3,000 is the lowest we can get, sorry, yeah, from Dominion.
3,000.
So that's what is available right now. The ideal is 2,700. So that's another thing we're trying to advocate for, is getting to that color range. But yeah, to get to your question, I think the great thing with LEDs is that you have the option to pair it with better technology to control things like blue light or glare or brightness that are going to affect light pollution and affect animals, us, and especially on streetways.
Difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is better for dark skies?
Well, I think it's,
High pressure or the LEDs as they are, not getting involved with how you control the glow. And I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
this is just a question. I have no other, there's nothing.
I know on my
There's
street,
no reason I'm asking this question.
well, what's interesting is over time, the high pressure sodium fixtures, they put out less light over time. And so what ends up, you're like, and that's been part of the problem, is that, when they retrofit with LED, so they want to say, okay, this was supposed to put out a certain number of lumens, so we're going to match that. But that high pressure sodium fixture hasn't been putting out that much light for a long time, correct?
on my
Because
street, I've got
over
my-
time, the amount of light put decreases. So it's kind of a complicated question. So for me personally, I'd rather have the old high pressure sodium light
that's the salt
on
light.
my street than I would what they're going to replace it with
Yeah,
now.
so it's something we're trying to work on is as these retrofits happen, that we can have better options and better temperatures so that when it gets to the neighborhood level, it can be, more.
Us
Yeah.
here involved, we like to look at the sky being filtered.
Mhm.
Somebody else can answer this question. I'm not sure if what I'm going to say is correct. Or like the filters that we have, we can put in front of our cameras and our eyepieces. I believe that they are able to, and I'm could be wrong here, apologize, filter out high pressure sodiums versus the LEDs. Is there anybody know? Anybody about that?
You can have it tuned to almost anything you want. Problem is that if you want exposure, let's say astrophotography, like I use a CLSP filter. I live in Cruzade, but I face Charlottesville, there's a lot of sky glow. Let's do a long exposure, then all the tight outer parts of the storm images are all red because it's red light comes through. So then I gotta worry about correcting all that. It's better not trying to do it. And while I'm talking, I'd like to commend you for what you're doing. And I've been working for 25 years trying to preserve habitat for wildlife, first in Northern Virginia, now in Albemarle and Nelson County. And no matter what you do, it's the tax base of the developers that control what gets done.
Exactly.
And
I-
please keep at it and don't stop. But it's like, keep your head against the wall.
I
I've
think,
reported on Multnomah County about preserving places, the Parks Commission, the Planning Commission for years, and just ignored.
yeah, I think the one benefit with an issue like this, as far as environmental issues go, is that there is a direct financial gain to be had for Dominion and the corporations involved in these projects. Well, it'll be cheaper for them as well, because LEDs will save them more money on their utilities. So I think in general, there's more of a financial case to be made, which can help.
That needs to be very strongly made.
Yep.
Not just the Dominion, but the community and the developers.
Yep.
So just two quick thoughts here. So for Dominion, you would think, with all the growth going on here, rather than have to pay for infrastructure, increase, and if they can do this, they could keep the infrastructure the same and make more money, so that's part one. Part two is Tom Pierpoint. I talked to, he's a member of our club. So Tom Pierpoint, spoke to me a couple of days ago. He's not here tonight. He's working, so he couldn't be here. But he said, when you guys are ready, if you want to talk to him, he is, very familiar with some of the senior executives at Dominion and would be happy to help, you guys.
Excellent.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. So,
Great.
I'll get your names also. We'll get you guys linked up and see what he can do. But he said, hey, I'd be happy to do that.
That'd be great.
That'd be great.
No, you had a question.
Oh, I was gonna say, if you wanted, it was kind of what they were at.
Okay. So,
Got a
yeah.
question?
Oh, sorry.
Hey, I apologize if you were planning to answer this already. It seems to me that a lot of the motivation for lighting, not so much to sell the bulbs or the power, even though that might be part of it, but it's justified on safety grounds.
Yeah.
Everybody says in that industry, the more light, the better, and you'll be safer, less crime or fewer accidents or whatever. Have you done any research
I'm gonna-
into whether or not?
I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah, that's coming up.
That's coming up.
Maybe we should move on
Okay.
to the next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to finish this up, if they first started changing some of these lights here on the interchange from Emmett Street by Bodo's Bagels onto 250. This is where they first started implementing some of the new retrofits. So they're starting with like major public streetways for the first year. And then it's supposed to be a 3-year project. And so for the last 2, that's when they're going to transition to residential areas once they understand what they're doing more. And so what me and Christine have been working on in Charlottesville is we've also partnered with a lighting designer named Mark Schuyler, who's extremely knowledgeable about the really nitty gritty technical details about lighting. And he's been a really wonderful resource. And we've been able to meet with city officials who are directly running this project. And they've been very receptive to these things. And we're working directly with them on these issues, and they are starting to put pressure on Dominion as well. And so there's a lot of positives here, and our talks with Dominion have been progressing, and they've been listening to us, and we've been meeting almost every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So just the fact that they're willing to listen to us. We've been getting a lot of pandering, of course, but yeah.
But even the fact that they were able to reduce the lumen output of the ones that the city,
They did, yeah.
they took it upon themselves to really try, they're doing the best they
Yeah,
can.
before we even came to talk to them, they were already like, okay, we're gonna try to minimize this as much as we can and put in the right fixtures that they have available. And so one other main thing we're trying to address, which Mark is helping us with, is that since Dominion isn't providing all the very the nitty gritty detail, engineering specific specifications for their fixtures, such as blue light, I forget what's spectral distribution.
Yeah.
Things like that are really important when you're going light by light and you're trying to curate the right light for that situation, the right safety measures, all these things. Dominion doesn't offer that. And so that's not even following federal guidelines, just a lot of problems with that in general. So he's been kind of exposing all of that in our meetings, and which has been really great. And so they're starting to address that as well. And then we're also at the state level, there's a group that regulates all the utility fixed costs and things. And they've been starting to talk about requiring or talking to Dominion about offering adaptive controls and things, because all these issues have been brought to their attention as well. So it's positive things happening. And so if you want to get involved, you can come to our coalition meetings. They're usually online to stay updated and learn about how you can get involved. But just talking about it helps.
Adaptive controls means say from 10 at night till 6 a.m. or something, it could be toned down.
Yeah.
When people aren't out and about to help dissuade the safety concern.
Yeah, the city of Tucson have installed adaptive controls. And what they did is basically peak traffic hours, they have them at whatever it is, 90%. But as the evening, there's less traffic on the road, they continue to dim them down. And what they found is they've been able to save money, and also the fixtures last longer, so there's reduced maintenance. But things like that make sense, right? that the technology is there, so why not utilize it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can make a difference, and I think that of course, this topic of safety comes up, right? Because everybody's like, I got to turn the lights on because this is what's going to keep me safe, or it's dangerous out there. This is the only thing I do, and we just hear it over and over and over again. And so perhaps you've seen this image before. So the question is, does having a big glaring light actually make us safer? So you can see in the top image, you've got all that glare. And even though there's somebody standing at that gate, you can't see that person. So one thing that bright lights do is they provide great hiding places for people. Because when you think when you have all this lights and you look outside and like nobody's there, that's because you're blinded and you can't see very far, right? And so there's a myth, and the advent of LEDs is probably the biggest factor driving the exponential growth of light pollution. Lighting can lure us into a false sense of security, but it causes blind spots. And scientific evidence does not support the belief that, or the practice that more lighting and brighter lighting universally increases safety and security. So in 1997, the National Institute of Justice study concluded we have very little confidence that improved lighting prevents crime. And another study in 2000 found that an increase, what they did is they lit the alleys in Chicago. And as a result, there were more reported crimes because of course now people can see where they're going. They probably weren't going into those dark alleys before, but now that it's all lit, okay, I know where the back door is, I know where the garage is, I know everything. And
they can see what people have left in their
yeah,
cars.
exactly. And when they reduced street lighting in Wales and England, they didn't see any increases in crime or accidents. And according to ADT security systems, most burglaries actually occur between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. So it's not really the light that, and then also like poor lighting just creates these blind spots. So the evidence is really not there that lighting is going to make us safer. And especially this type of lighting, there are, LED, good or bad, really great improvements in technology where you can have lighting that doesn't produce all that glare and just bring down the amount of light, right? So that you don't end up with these gigantic blind spots that you can't see beyond. So I think that's the problem, is how can we kind of bring down the temperature, bring down the lighting levels a little bit, and sort of dispel this myth that more is better. All right, the next one. And so this is from Dark Sky International. It's just like, how can we can be safer also if we can follow these principles of responsible lighting, which is the only lights we should have would be something light that actually serves a purpose. We should make sure that they're targeted and illuminating the places that need to be illuminated, like places where people walk when they're walking. Use the lowest light possible, and utilize these controls, right, with dimmers or motion detectors. And then finally, using the warmest color temperature and limiting the amount of blue light in the lighting that we have. All right, the next slide. Oh, yeah, do you want to add?
Yeah, never ever uplight trees.
Yeah. Yeah, we noticed, people, that seems to be a thing now, this decorative lighting. All right, the next one. And so I hope that all of you will join us in having conversations with your friends and neighbors about this, because part of it involves just individual action and looking at how much light is escaping from your own house. I live out in the country, I live in the woods. And when I walk out at night, I was like, look, the light that's blasting out of my windows. And sometimes I have a single light on it in my house. It is an LED, it is a warm light, but it's amazing how much light floods out of my windows because I'm surrounded by darkness. So I'm really taken to dropping my blinds at night and just being conscientious of that. A lot of us have solar lighting. That light is on all night long. So really to consider taking a look at our own homes and what we're doing, how can we reduce our light output rather. The next slide. And then I just want to make a plug to get in. We have here in Albemarle, how many people are Albemarle County residents? Okay, so we have several here. Right now, we're going through the process of our comprehensive plan update. And so now is the time to be writing our supervisors and saying, that you care about this, and making sure that we have the language that can support a strong update of the lighting ordinance. And so, and of course, Charlottesville did update their lighting ordinance and their process of the streetlight retrofit. So if you live in the city, you can also write to your council members and say, I'm concerned about what's going to be happening on my street when they do this retrofit. Next slide. And so I have some thoughts about the Albemarle County outdoor lighting ordinance. Some of the things that, because all over the country, right, people are having this experience of this, well, we have more and more light, but also street lights are being converted to LEDs and the lights are really bright. And so people are finding that all of a sudden, or even now, you can't go to sleep at night because your neighbor's lights are blaring into your house. And so to think about creating lighting zones, and I believe that McCormick Observatory, there is a lighting zone around McCormick Observatory. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
And so to think about these lighting zones, places where we can expect a certain level of light, but as we go further out into the rural area, those light levels need to be less and less. And then thinking about lumen per acre caps, like, okay, when we reach this, that's all, because otherwise we're in this race of things getting brighter and brighter. And I just thought that this diagram was interesting because if you follow the Illuminating Engineering Society, in a parking lot on the ground, there should only be 0.2 foot candles of light. That's not a lot of light, but I can guarantee you most parking lots are much illuminated to a much larger extent than that, right? So really think about what is it that we need and really stick by those standards. And also, it's difficult to enforce the ordinance. So thinking about how we can have an ordinance that is actually enforceable and that there's better enforcement. Yeah,
That doesn't include the surface. If it's a concrete parking lot, it's going to reflect light.
right,
You
exactly.
could just restate that for the fifth and people online, they can't hear.
Oh, which one?
What he just said.
Oh, so how much light is going to depend on the surface of the parking lot, whether it's asphalt or concrete. And if it's concrete, it's going to reflect that light back up, right?
That should be in the standard as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you saying this was adopted?
No, it hasn't been adopted, but I just wanted
Well,
to
what is
throw
it?
these ideas out there. So if you're wondering, what am I going to say to the supervisors? One thing is that they need to hire a lighting consultant to help them really create a nice, strong ordinance. And Dark Sky International just came out in 2024 with a model lighting ordinance. And so they include these lighting zones and thinking about, lumen per acre caps, et cetera, et cetera.
So you're advocating for these?
Yes, these are some of the things that we should be advocating for.
How likely do you think it is that Albemarle County will put that in?
Well, the town of Vienna just got done. They went through an ordinance update of their ordinance, and they hired lighting specialists that came in, and they did some great community outreach. And so they have a model ordinance now. So it is happening, and it can happen here.
And so you could point at the town of Vienna and say, look,
Yeah.
they did it.
Exactly. And today, where's my, today we were in front of the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, and this is the second year. They signed a proclamation recognizing Dark Sky International Week, which is April 21st to the 28th. And every single one of the supervisors was very supportive. And as a follow-up, I did send them the information on the town of Vienna and the work that they did there. So if they can do it there, they can do it here.
I had a neighbor that was trespassing a lot of light onto my property. And of course, as an astronomer, I had to do something about that. So I did talk to them. And they agreed to turn off their lights, at
Yeah.
least most of the time.
Yeah.
But before I even went over there to talk to them, I looked at the city ordinance. And I found, for example, that there were limits on the number of watts you could put in a fixture.
Mhm.
Well, that's a problem because watts is not an indicator of
Right.
lumens anymore. So
Yeah.
if you put a 100-watt LED in there, you're cranking up,
Yeah, and that's,
you know.
that is the other recommendation is get rid of the watts
And
and put in the lumens.
not only that, but there was no limit on the number of fixtures. So you can stay within the code
Yeah,
by limiting your LED to 100 watts and then covering your house with 100 fixtures. You'd still be within code.
right.
And you would look like Central Park. I mean, like Times Square.
Because sometimes it's difficult to talk to neighbors,
Right,
and it's the most important conversation to have.
right.
Is it easier to shoot out a high pressure something or a LED?
We've
I
only
think it'd be easier
pondered
to
that.
shoot out the high pressure sodium. The LED's got lots of little sources.
All right, we'll go to the next one. So I also want to just bring up something that I'm really excited about is the Audubon has a Lights Out program, and Hampton Roads has a Bird Safe Lights Out program that they've just started. And basically what they do is they ask businesses and schools and government agencies to turn their lights off from the hours of 11 p.m. to sunrise during the fall and spring bird migration. And we would love, if anybody is passionate about that and would like to help in organizing, I'd love to see something like this in Charlottesville, Albemarle area. And it's just such a simple thing to do, a way of raising awareness. And, you know, we'd save energy. There's 100 wins on that. So next one. Yeah, so wondering how we can work together. We will be in the city council chambers on April 21st for a proclamation, and we would be happy to have you join us there and to stand behind us or stand up when the proclamation's made. You can bring signs. You guys have doing some amazing outreach events, and so just continuing to spread the word about the opportunities that exist to make a difference here. Anybody want to help us out with creating a Lights Out program? And then lastly, I'd like to just encourage you to report code violations. And this is the Charlottesville code violation. Not to say that I have done my reporting. I finally heard back and I'm still saying, they said, this is in compliance. I'm like, written back. You have to explain that to me. But I think the more people that if you have a problem, report it. And at least that will bring to light the issues that exist.
And I do also want to add
Yeah.
that Scottsville, the town of Scottsville also approved a proclamation for International Dark Sky Week, and they've been fairly supportive, and their lighting is pretty good. They've got
Yeah.
some commercial establishments that are not, but on the whole, their street light situation is pretty good.
Yeah.
And they care. Nelson County has done some work, and you all probably know there are 4 dark sky state parks in Virginia and Rappahannock County Park.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so well, we have that here. You can continue if you want.
Well, here you go.
Yeah, and we're excited because one of the members of our group is working in Powhatan to get the Powhatan State Park.
Yeah, it's Powhatan
Designated.
State Park, and they're too close to Richmond to be a full-on dark sky park designation, but there's a separate, they can be a dark sky place, which means they can kind of hold the line. And that's what's so important for so many of our rural areas. We just need to try to hold the line. We've got to work with the city ordinances, we got to work with the county ordinances, but this creep is so concerning.
Mhm.
If it helps, CAS, Social Astronomical Society, we did sign up with that Powhatan, with.
Oh, you did,
Yeah, we did,
excellent,
so we both signed up on it.
excellent.
Great. And I think if just go back one slide. And so we have some books. Has anybody read any of these books?
Paul Boberg spoke to us about things years ago.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. But anyhow, to finish, a little bit of reading about some of the like biological implications.
You can fact check it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I think we are done. And so,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for your.
Any questions?
Yes. I live in Waynesboro, and one of my favorite observing places is just down the Blue Ridge Parkway from Afton. Really dark up there. It's really nice. I don't remember where it was, about a month ago or so, and I'm not sure where I read it about, but there are plans to put in a major disaster up there with 37 towering lights that they say will be shaded, probably, that are going to shine down on that intersection. Now, 37.
I know.
I think I drive that mountain all the time at night. In fact, I gotta go back, and if you don't know where you're going, it gets a little bit, some people might have trouble with it. I could probably light up what needs to be lit with 5 lights.
Yeah.
But they're gonna plug in 37. Do you guys know anything about this potential?
I actually contacted like the engineer for VDOT. And they went through the process. They did it in cooperation with the Shenandoah National Park. So it's, I felt like at that point it was sort of a done deal. And they're fully shielded. I mean, you're right. I agree. It seems like overkill. And there's some question is, what do you do on a foggy night? It's just going to scatter light all over the place. It's not going to make it any safer. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, and thank you for your work.
120 years ago, the Soviets were proposing putting a space mirror up so you'd have 24-hour sunlight.
Yeah.
And I remember saying that nocturnal animals would really like that.
Yeah.
There are quite a few questions online, for one of you, if you'd like. Can the group provide guidance on their website for similar research and to provide information on the outdoor lights that can be purchased that meet best that requirement? I am trying to work with a photosensitive light on the shed as well as one on the side of the house. And passionately, Lowe's was no help at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, I have to say, I myself have looked for lights, so you go for the warmest light possible, but that's not going to really solve the problem with the blue light content. And so, so for example, at my house, I actually purchased the bug lights, and that's what I use in my house. And it is warm light, but I think that the best thing you can do is to just keep them off as much as possible. Unfortunately, I can't, can you give a recommendation on that?
Yeah, I think that's something we need to build as a better resource. I mean, IDA, International Dark Sky Association, has some resources about that
Yeah.
on their website, with some examples of fixtures you can buy. So that could be a place to look. It's not totally comprehensive or maybe the best.
Yeah.
That's probably the
But I
best.
would encourage you, when you go to Lowe's, to ask
Yeah.
for dark sky lighting. They have one and it's terrible, one model and it's terrible. But I think, it doesn't hurt to keep asking for things. I mean, to keep asking.
Because, yeah,
Yeah.
for example, can I see the mic?
Oh, yeah.
Like, for example, like when I worked with Groveland, the city of Groveland, we actually partnered with Lowe's and Home Depot to get better fixtures, and they did a whole kind of expose, like showing off the lights and everything. So it just goes to show, like, the more community support and the more you bother people, the more likely they are to. Well, I mean, especially for a business, if people are asking for these lights, they're going to provide them, you know. And so with kind of the changing tides, where like there's a lot more support for these initiatives, especially in Virginia, and we're spending a lot of focus on these retrofits and everything. There's just a lot more momentum, I think, to make changes, not just with the city level, but with, you know, manufacturers and everything
So
else.
they're asking actually if you'd be able to provide a list that, so they can email suppliers as well. If you know of any good ones, if you could send them to Cass after this, that would be. That would
Yeah,
be- that would be
yeah, we can
appreciated.
forward some resources.
So their next question is, excuse me, how does a FC translate to home purchases? What ranges should you stay in if you're looking? What number should, what range of
For,
foot candles?
oh, for the color temperature.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
I would go for the
lowest that you can,
The very
yeah.
lowest that you can.
which,
And so I think looking, if we could go, we will look at the Dark Sky International website and look at their recommended list. Again, going to Lowe's, I think it's almost like the native plant campaign. Nurseries didn't have the native plants. You had to get people asking for them before they began to supply them. So it's really like all of us getting out there and say, where are they? And but some of those products might be available online, but they're probably not going to be available at your.
but yeah, we can forward some resources. There are a few manufacturers that you can order directly from, but they're not coming to mind right now. So we can pull some of these things together.
And I think the last question is, 1 lumen is how many watts or LED question mark? But I don't know, those aren't really convertible units, but I think you can guess.
Kind of like we said, we're not experts. There's so many technical numbers to remember. I don't remember the
Yeah, but
conversion.
the great thing is you can look at a light bulb box when you buy your light bulb, and it'll tell you how many the lumen output. I just don't remember off the top of my head. But if you look at the box, you will see it tells you how many lumens it puts out.
If you know
Any other
where-
questions?
well,
Because they said you consider Amazon as opposed to Lowe's.
You could have
Yeah.
to say it again.
Yes, say Amazon.
So talking about Amazon as opposed to going straight to Lowe's. Yeah, I haven't tried that personally, but of course, yeah, you can. I'm sure you can definitely find some better.
But
I don't mind paying
But-
more.
I went through that process and it was very difficult to find. I mean, that was a couple years ago. So I think looking at that Dark Sky International list would be the good place to start, because there's just a lot of, when you look you want to look like dark skies, friendly lighting. You can find some bug lights. Did you find something? Well, there you go. Yeah.
Google dark sky and friendly lighting.
Yeah, okay.
You have to believe there's truth in advertising.
Yeah.
Be better than what you have. So.
Yeah.
Good.
Shields on them and they're very yellow light.
I will say this, I went to Lowe's and got a fabulous night device. So Ring cameras, the Ring camera I have in my house, when the thing triggers at nighttime, lights don't go on. I guess it's all infrared. I can show you, and so I don't let any lights trigger, but it does, send a little warning out in case something, I live in Glenmore like this, and they're gonna be, I saw a squirrel. But those Ring cameras, you don't have to have them turn on at nighttime, and you can still get a fabulous view, on the camera, and I think it's just because it's infrared. I don't know if that's good or bad, but.
As a security system.
Yes.
You don't have to put lights up to feel safe.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I certainly have. I've been in this nice little pocket of dark sky, and then the neighbors put a huge security light at the top of the building that comes on every time a cat walks in the backyard. And it lights up my entire backyard. It's unbelievable. So, and I said something about they had to do it for some camera. And I'm gonna tell him about, yeah, you tell me about that. That sounds great.
Shoot the cat.
Well, well, yeah, those darn cat, that's the other problem in our neighborhood. Get rid of those cats.
Any last questions?
I actually, years ago, had access to a 14-inch celestron, a school district way out in the movies in a dome, and there was one farm light, and then I stopped going when somebody shot out the light. And they also scratched KKK in the door of the observatory, so I said, I didn't want to be up till 3 in the morning by myself, but they shut out the light. So, it works.
That's what I like to do.
And then, yeah, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind sharing our contact information, or like, if you have any other questions that come to mind.
And just one other question. I have a dark sky meter app for my iPhone, and it seems to work pretty well. Is that somewhat equivalent to a dedicated dark sky meter?
Yeah, I was using, so I use SQM readers. I don't know if you were here earlier for that, but, oops, sorry. Though, yeah, those apps are great. I mean, they might not be as like super precise as like the SQM reader, but it'll still give you like that great general
Right.
sense of what you're getting and where, how good the area you are. in, so,
Somewhat comparable.
Dark sky meter. I had.
yeah, it's, yeah, like you can't write about it in like a scientific report or anything like that, but you know, you can get a good idea of what you're looking at. Yeah.
Do you measuring straight overhead, or are you trying to get?
I'm doing it just straight overhead because
Okay.
otherwise you get
Okay.
influence from streetlights and things that won't give you an accurate representation of like what the sky glow is looking like and everything just in the sky
'Cause
specifically.
I'm out at, Ivy area west of town, and I get about 20 and a half
Nice.
typically.
That's great.
So, and we go to some dark sites. I mean, I got the meter because I wanted to measure some of the dark sites we go to. And the great irony is I always forget to take the device to the dark sites. But, we go to a place south of town, Woodridge Farm Brewery, which I would guess is probably 21, maybe and a half or something like that.
Yeah, I would love to
But-
see. That would be cool.
And
And they're relatively affordable. I mean, they're about $150, so
Yeah.
not cheap, but also not as pricey as some other things go.
Here's,
so.
if you're interested, the next time we go down there every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
bring telescopes down.
Cool.
And if you want.
Yeah.
Get you connected up, go down there, take a look.
Yeah, I can
You
bring
see
them.
the Milky Way.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, bring the meter out if it's the right
Yeah.
time for it. So, because otherwise, right now, even using it outside, that wouldn't get good readings. But yeah.
Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you.
So before you get up, I want to thank you. I got a couple of gifts for you here. So first of all, comes with a gift. No bowl cap. I'm gonna trip and break them. So Christine, to you and from Piers and Peggy, and before you walk away, so this is the coveted Cass coffee cup, and very few people get them, and just the speakers. So thanks so much for coming out here. We'll pass information back and forth. I want to get you the name for Tom Pierpoint, who said to me, when you talk to him, tell him I know executives at Dominion. So
Thank you.
so thanks so much. Thanks. Oh, yes, you had.
Thank you.